Thank you for those readings. Beautiful. God is helping God. That is his drama. And the more that we can tune in to that meaning of life, the happier we will be. If we can feel that every person we meet is an aspect of God, every animal, every plant, every other human being has within it that spark of the divine. And the more that we can relate to that potential, as the reading is saying, the more that we can feel that, the happier we will be, and the more we will see God everywhere. And as the Gita reading says, as we relate to that and act the same towards all, we attain supreme devotion to God because we realize him everywhere. God helping God, that is his drama. That's what this life is about. There's a story that I read that happened some years ago, true story. And there was a man who was a missionary. I don't remember which country he was in, but he was stationed far out in a rural area, in a little village. He was a doctor, and so he was helping people in that village and surrounding villages with medical needs. And he was so far away from the nearest town that he had to ride on his bicycle 2 days every month to go into the nearest town to get supplies. And on the way there, he would camp overnight under the stars, and the next day make his way into the village, get the supplies. He was staying at a little clinic in the town with friends of his, and then he would make the reverse journey back every month. Well, one time he made the journey, camped out, got to the town, stayed at the clinic, and that night there was a big street brawl, and people were all wounded and a mess, and they came to the little clinic, and this doctor helped sew them up, stitch them up, and get them ready to recover. Well, a couple of the guys who were of a criminal bent, shall we say, found out what the story of this missionary doctor was, that he got supplies and rode his bicycle, and then he spent the night out under the stars. And they thought, well, let's follow him out of the town, rob him, kill him, no one will know the difference, and we'll get the money from all these medical supplies that he has. And so that's what they did. They followed the doctor out, and he made his way, camped overnight, slept peacefully, got up the next morning, went to his village, nothing had happened. And the following month, he came back to town, and he met one of these men, and he said, "Hey, how are you doing? How's your stitched up arm," or whatever he had fixed on this man? And the man was spooked. And he said, "You know, I've changed my life now, but I want to tell you that my friend and I, we were going to rob you and do you in. And we followed you out, and we found your campsite, and we were sneaking up on you at your campsite. But you had all these guards around you. Where did all those guards come from? My buddy and I were so outnumbered, we counted all the guards. There were 26. And the doctor didn't know what to say. And so he just witnessed to this man and told him about God's love and encouraged him to change his life. And the man went away. He had been changed. So some weeks later, it was time for this doctor to make his yearly visit to the States. And so he came back and he was telling the congregation stories of his time on his mission. And he told them about this story. And midway through the story, one of the men stood up in the congregation and said, "Do you remember the exact date that happened?" And the doctor said, "Well, yes, I always go on the same day, so it was this day of this month." And the man said, "On that day, I had a very strong feeling to pray for you. And it was so strong that I called my friends in the congregation, and I'd like them to stand up now." And the men stood up, and the doctor was so amazed. He couldn't even hear the story. He was counting the men. And there were 26. We can be emissaries for God's love in this world. And once we realize, as Yogananda said, this is God's world, we're working for Him. Once we realize that, once we know that we can make a difference by our love and our care and our prayer for each other, the world changes completely. You will find this to be true. I've found it to be true in my own life. The more we think of ourselves, the more we think of what's best for me and what I need to do for my health and well-being and financial security and all those things that relate to me and what I want, there's never enough and there's no happiness in it. But the more that we give ourselves over to God and let Him take charge of our lives. If we work for God, as Yogananda said, and we offer all of our actions to Him, we will be happy and we will be plugged into the source of joy, the source that knows what everyone needs, and we can become an instrument for that. We can actually help people. This story is about prayer. That one key is so important. If we can pray, and it doesn't have to be formal, doesn't have to be sophisticated, it doesn't have to even make grammatical sense, because God knows what we are saying. He reads our hearts. God understands everything. I was just reading something interesting that Yogananda said about Christ consciousness. He said, in part, God's body is creation. It's everything created. When someone touches you anywhere on your body, you know. In that same way, God knows everything that we do, everything we think, everything we feel, everything we suffer, because we are part of Him. So you don't have to make an appointment with God. Anytime, every time, He's already there. He's waiting to hear from you. Yogananda said, if you want to change the world for the better, the most effective way to do that is to live the teachings of Christ and all the enlightened ones. Live that teaching. Don't let it be some intellectual thing. Yes, love thy neighbor as thyself. Yeah, I got that one down. Make it real. Make it living. Manifest that teaching in your life. And keep working towards it, be clear about, okay, well, where I am right now is here, but where I want to go is that, as Yogananda said, train your heart to feel the brotherhood of man. It's not automatic. Don't feel bad if you don't feel it. You have to work at it. Train your heart to feel the brotherhood of man. And in that way, we will become happy. As the Bhagavad Gita reading says today, the serene self. That's what we want to aim for. Let's resolve in this new year to let go of all the past. We have a big fire ceremony outside tonight. It's a perfect time to throw away all the imperfections, all the hurts, all the trauma, all the negativity. Throw it in the fire, burn it up, transmute it into light. Be free of it. And the other key, besides prayer, and it's all really related, is to keep your mind positive. I was also just recently reading from Yogananda's writings that he said that negative thoughts, fear, worry, hatred, anxiety, all those negative feelings, those come from Satan, he said. They draw the consciousness down. In another reading, Yogananda said that all that kind of negative thought actually pulls the kundalini down, that energy in the spine, into materialism, into darkness. And every positive thought, every prayer for others, every thought that draws God in any way. Help me get through this traffic. Anything. Every positive thought raises the kundalini. Every positive thought gets us closer to freedom. So watch your minds, as I have resolved to watch mine in this new year, to go on a worry fast, as Yogananda said. Don't let any thoughts of worry or fear enter your mind. And if they do, cast them out and focus on the positive. Give your life to God more and more deeply. Give your mind to God, your heart to God. And the more you feel His presence, the more you will see Him everywhere, and the happier you will be.
So Kieran, is this thing on? Are we getting me or not getting me?
No, we just don't seem to have it mic'd all day. The battery's good, so it's a mystery.
Batteries are fine. Anyway, okay. Well, I will swallow this microphone. Hopefully I wanted to share a story from my own life. This is a far more mundane example of what Nirmala was describing in that dramatic story of this missionary. There was a time in my life, in my teenage years, when I became a vegetarian, that I became reasonably competent in the kitchen. My mother politely and sweetly responded to my saying, I'm going to become a vegetarian now, by saying, oh, I guess you're going to be doing some cooking, because I'm not going to make two meals, one for you and one for everyone else. And it worked out just beautifully, actually. She helped a lot. She's very enthusiastic with that sort of thing. But much before this, probably when I was somewhere between 8 and 10 years old, I was not proficient in the kitchen. In fact, I had one signature dish, you might say, of my own creation. I will give myself that much credit. I knew how to operate the toaster. And I made what I called a hot peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You can probably gather what this is. It's 2 pieces of toast. One of them has peanut butter, one of them has jelly. You put the 2 together. Guess what you got? A hot peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I thought it was pretty cool. It was crunchy. It was yummy because I like peanut butter and jelly. It was all good. Now, the point of the story is not the sandwich. The point of the story is what happened because of the sandwich. I was babysitting. I have a twin sister. I think most of you know that. Many of you know that. She generally did the babysitting in the neighborhood. You know, girls seem to gravitate toward that sort of thing more than boys, and generally I think people are more comfortable having girls gravitate to it than boys for all good reasons, I'm sure. But I actually did do a little bit occasionally, and I got assigned the job of babysitting one of my relatives who was younger. And even though I was fairly young, it wasn't for a long period of time, a couple or 3 hours, but those hours crossed the dinner hours. Well, I didn't have a lot to offer, but I could offer the hot peanut butter and jelly sandwich concept. And I did. And I made myself one, and I made her one, and lo and behold, it was a smashing hit. And it is memorable all these decades later because what I realized in retrospect was that that represented a kind of nurturing that was not part of my sort of lexicon, vocabulary of behavior, whatever, however you want to think of it. And it was pure, I'm going to perhaps invent a word here, it was pure obliviosity on my part. But, you know, obliviousness, maybe that's the real word, can sort of grow and flower into all sorts of things that come in adulthood. Ignorance, perhaps even going as far as bigotry, or just plain not being aware of someone else's presence, and more importantly, of how our presence can affect them or how we can create that nurturing. We live in a society that could be better connected than it is right now. We, having Nirmala and I think many of you know, travel to different parts of the world teaching, Russia, India, Europe, etc. Other cultures, the family energy sticks together. That has positives and a few negatives as well, of course, as everything in this world does. But there is a sense of connectedness that we could aspire to better in this country and in this culture. And I want to suggest in this year coming that I would like to invite you to join us, literally us, Nirmala and me, on a pilgrimage. I will describe that pilgrimage more in the days to come, a pilgrimage to India specifically that we'll take in October. But more importantly, because not everyone in the room is going to be able to go on such a pilgrimage, I'd like to invite all of us on a pilgrimage called the year 2018. And that pilgrimage is a pilgrimage into the Spirit of God within us and among us. Because there is a power and a blessing that we can share together. Pilgrimage is often done in a group. It's not only done in a group exclusively, but it can be done in a group in a very beneficial way. And it's powerful. There's a reason why people keep on doing pilgrimages. We've connected with friends recently who've done a wonderful pilgrimage in Spain, across walking, literally walking across Spain along a certain holy path and staying in little towns along the way and visiting the churches and so forth. There is a grace and a power to following the journey within, and how it leads us outwardly, you know, it'll vary from person to person. But and just to a practical point, if you're interested in the trip to India, even if it's just curious, no commitment, but if you're interested, there's a sign-up sheet out in the foyer, and you can put your name on it. We'll have information available shortly, and we'll arrange some meetings. There are going to be a whole bunch of different satsangs about that coming up in the weeks to come. But let us join in this pilgrimage, because we can help each other along the path. Whether we go to India or not, that's not the issue. We're all going to walk through the year 2018, just as we've all walked through 2017, and it's almost over now. And the beginning, the new dawn is coming, starting tomorrow morning. But let's follow that path of walking towards our own inner knowledge and inner awareness. I had a kind of strange image come to me, and I wanted to share it. This is a little bit of a visualization, but it touches on something that Nirmala was saying about how we impact each other. And this is sort of the opposite side of the coin of the prayer image that she was describing. If several of us were in a nice swimming pool, paddling around, it's hot summer, we're there enjoying the moment, and a dear friend that we haven't seen for a while comes to the pool, but the friend is covered with mud and proceeds to instantly leap into the swimming pool. Several things are going to happen. One of them is that the people are going to go, "Oh my God, you're here, how wonderful." Another thing that's going to happen is we're going to go, "But why did you get in the pool all muddy?" I mean, it's like it totally messes up the pool, and now we're all kind of in this slightly muddy environment together that we can't quite escape unless we get out of the pool. Yes, okay, over time the mud settles. Chaitanya's amazing vacuum cleaner, contraption takes all the glarp out of the pool. It all works out eventually. But in the moment, that little bit of insensitivity creates this situation where we all have to deal with something that isn't quite necessary. And that is what happens when and it's so easy to do, we've all done it, we express the complaint or the negativity or the whatever it is, we make that observation and we share it with the people nearby. And it's not that we should never express those kinds of things, but it needs to be done in a way that's uplifting, that actually sort of works towards a solution or a resolve, rather than just sort of getting the pool all full of mud. And that effect, what we focus on in this world, tends to be what we see. What we look for tends to be what we perceive in our environment. If we're looking for all the things that are wrong, there are going to be lots of them. Truthfully, this is a world that has lots of stuff to fix, lots of stuff to improve. We can be an instrument for that improvement without getting the pool muddy. And so let us in this year try to offer up our energy. There are people, and this is where the image sort of breaks down a little bit, that there are people whose very presence cleans the pool like in an instant. It's like, I remember I have a dear friend who, you cannot gossip. You cannot bring negativity in front of this person, because there's a force field. There's a, like around those planets or spaceships or whatever that you see in the movies, it's like there's this force field that just says, I don't really vibrate with that. That's not where I'm at. It's not that such information is irrelevant, but if it brings the energy down, I'm not going down with you. I'm going to stay up, and we're going to try to work together and find a solution. And it's a beautiful and challenging situation, because it's so easy. And we tend to say those things to people who will go, "Yeah, well, did you hear about blah, blah, blah?" And it sort of creates this whole little feedback loop. We don't have to live in that kind of world. We can live in a world that says, what can I do to help? How can I nurture? How can I improve? How can I uplift the energy? And that's part of the pilgrimage of 2018, that we can all join together on, we can all be uplifted in that light. And whether or not we learn to make hot peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and share them with each other isn't so much the point, but that concept of offering support, that's really what it comes to. If we can, because we get to know each other fairly well. You know, our families, our friends, we're around each other. We learn to vibrate on a certain level. We get to know that fairly well. But to the point where even sometimes without opening our mouths, without saying anything, there's this implied, you're about to say something that I don't want to hear, aren't you? Nirmala and I have developed this rapport where sometimes we both think of the same thing at the same time. We haven't talked about it for 2 years, but you know, if one of us says one word about, that's what I was thinking about too. So we know on a certain level, but if we can keep it uplifted, moving upward, then everybody has a place in that world. There's room for all of us. There's room for all of us to grow in God. So this evening, if you are inspired to join us, as Nirmala mentioned, we're going to have this amazing fire ceremony. We'll do the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. Yes, that is a word, Mahamrityunjaya. It's a bit of a tongue twister. We'll do that mantra 108 times. We will offer into the flames of that fire all of 2017 and along with it, anything else that came before, if we really feel the need to. But as a way of awakening in ourselves a clear sense of what is the high potential of 2018 and how can we realize it individually and collectively. It's very powerful. We're not going to do the midnight thing. We're not going to make you drive home at 12:30 or something in the night when God knows what else is out there. It starts at 7, it goes till 8:30. Yes, it will be cool in the fire ceremony. We'll be outside, so bring a jacket. But once that's finished, we'll regather back inside here. There is a blessing in this and a power in it, and we invite you to join us as part of that. God bless. Namaste.